ABC World News with Diane Sawyer.
And a good evening to you on this Monday night. We begin with the fast-moving story of American Bowe Bergdahl and the firestorm over the deal that released him from captivity. 5 Taliban leaders have gone free in the deal, and a lot of people are arguing that was too high a price to pay. Other people wondering tonight about the baffling young man who wandered off his post. The only thing everyone seems to agree on, those sent to his rescue were heroic. Our coverage of the release of Bowe Bergdahl begins with ABC's Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz. Martha.
Good evening, Diane. Tonight we are hearing stunning new accusations from the soldiers who served with Bowe Bergdahl and those who risked their lives to save him, with even a former senior defense official tonight calling Bergdahl a deserter. Tonight, the question, who really is Bowe Bergdahl? The soldier, hospitalized in stable condition, he was held so long by the Taliban, we know he is still speaking in their native language, finding English difficult.
Let me go, get me to come home.
It was 7 p.m. Saturday with U.S. drones and helicopters tracking overhead. A team of so-called black U.S. special operators, those who are part of the most secretive missions, arrived for a prearranged meeting with Bergdahl and close to 20 Taliban. A tense exchange, but no shots fired as the 28-year-old was hustled into a waiting helicopter. Soon, his parents appearing with the president in the Rose Garden, his dad growing a long beard in support for his son, even learning the captor's language, expressing deep gratitude. But today, the controversy over the deal, releasing those 5 members of the Taliban, is only growing. And some of the soldiers who served with Bergdahl, described as a skilled marksman who also liked ballet and was homeschooled in his small town in Idaho, are beginning to speak out. Former Army Sergeant Evan Buteau was Bergdahl's team leader. He describes him as a good soldier who wanted to help the Afghan people, but that Bergdahl began complaining about the U.S. role in the war.
He was definitely upset and frustrated with the war effort and how we were handling our business.
Then just 2 months into his deployment, early in the morning, Bergdahl disappeared, leaving his body armor, weapon, and helmet behind. And while glad he is alive and free, Buteau considers Bergdahl a deserter.
He walked away. He walked right off the base. The fact of the matter is he deserted us in the middle of Afghanistan to go and find the Taliban.
Within hours, Bergdahl would be in the hands of the Taliban, and the U.S. military would be launching a massive search, a search that Buteau and other soldiers say resulted in the deaths of American soldiers.
People calling him a hero and people calling him this this great soldier, I mean, it's a spit in the face to, one, all the soldiers who were there, and more importantly, it's a spit in the face to the soldiers who died as a direct result to him leaving.
The Pentagon has never on the record said that Bergdahl walked away from his post, but the former defense official agreed with Sergeant Buteau, saying that he believes Bergdahl was seeking out the Taliban. What's needed now, of course, is Bergdahl's side of the story. Diane?
Everyone eager to hear that. Thank you, Martha Raddatz. And as Martha said, the decision to release major Taliban prisoners as part of the deal on Bergdahl has triggered a furious wave of criticism. 5 members of the Taliban set free and now receiving a hero's welcome, living in a fashionable neighborhood. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross now on how dangerous they are.
Tonight, the 5 freed detainees are living in the midst of luxury in Qatar, in a Taliban villa in the West Bay Lagoon neighborhood of the capital city of Doha. New video today shows the men receiving a hero's welcome as they arrived there over the weekend. There was no sign they were in custody or under guard. Their families were flown in to be with them, and the only known condition imposed by the U.S. was that they not travel outside of Qatar for at least a year.
I think they're helpful. These are very seasoned strategic leaders of the Taliban.
Today in Washington, Republicans said the deal was a bad one in a number of ways.
You have to be concerned not only about the principle of negotiating with terrorists, but the 5 who were released in exchange for Sergeant Bergdahl.
U.S. military assessments of the 5 senior Taliban leaders made 6 years ago found a high risk to the U.S. if any of them were set free. Of perhaps greatest concern, Mullah Mohammad Fazl, the former deputy defense minister of the Taliban. The U.S. assessment found if released, he would likely rejoin the Taliban, and also accused him of possible war crimes in the murders of thousands of Shiite Muslims in Afghanistan. The White House said today the prisoner swap was the right thing to do.
The United States does not leave our men and women in uniform behind.
After more than 12 years in captivity and away from the battlefield, it's not clear how much immediate value the 5 men would have to the Taliban now. But today, its one-eyed leader, Mullah Omar, emerged from years of silence to call the release a great victory and a sign, he said, the U.S. is headed to ultimate defeat in Afghanistan.
All right, Brian Ross, thank you. And as the debate continues to rage tonight, military doctors are hard at work trying to help Bergdahl prepare for a slow and difficult transition back to American life. So why is it so difficult? ABC's Neil Karlinski travels to his hometown in Iowa.
For Bowe Bergdahl, freedom is complicated. Few can imagine what he's endured, but British filmmaker Sean Langan can.
And I'm terrified of numerous things.
Held for 3.5 months by the same Taliban-affiliated group. He says it was terrifying.
The real struggle, not in captivity, is surviving. It is when you're released. And that's when the real struggle begins, bizarrely, coming home.
He says when Bergdahl comes home to tiny Haley, Idaho, it won't be easy to leave behind the trauma of his time as a prisoner. Even the simplest everyday chores may suddenly become a challenge.
That elation of being back home and free and tasting my first salad, first cold beer, holding my children in my arms, you're filled with love. And then 3 months later, every night for 6 months, I would just see images of death.
Bergdahl was held for more than 5 years, taken in the remote mountains of eastern Afghanistan. A landscape that Bowe's father has pointed out actually looks pretty similar to his hometown of Haley, Idaho. And that may help Bowe make what the military likes to call a soft landing back home. Video obtained by the Guardian newspaper shows Bowe's father in a nearby tent. In woods where Bowe used to hike, he says his son could possibly find solitude here.
We set this up for him, hoping he'd get home.
There is no timetable for his recovery. Bowe Bergdahl may be physically free, but the mental side will take longer. Neil Karlinski, ABC News, Haley, Idaho.
And our thanks